The Bible references lands located south of Egypt, with one prominent land mentioned is Cush, also known as Ethiopia. Cush was renowned for its wealth and wisdom in ancient times. The mention of Cush sets the stage for exploring Africa's historical influence. This exploration aims to uncover the significance of African contributions. The Queen of Sheba's visit to Solomon represents a significant historical encounter. This meeting symbolizes the interaction between two prominent civilizations, Africa and Israel. The visit highlights the exchange of cultures, knowledge, and ideas between these regions. It illustrates a period of diplomacy and mutual respect in ancient times. The construction of Solomon's temple involved numerous individuals with diverse roles. The Ark of the Covenant was a central artifact associated with the temple. The script explores the question of potential African ancestry among those involved in the temple's construction. It investigates the possibility of African roots among the ancient Hebrew people. This inquiry delves into historical connections and genetic origins. The narrative of Joseph illustrates early interactions between Hebrew people and Egyptian society. Joseph's journey from slavery to a position of power highlights the opportunities within ancient Egypt. His story provides a backdrop for understanding the cultural influence of Egypt on Hebrew identity. This sets the stage for examining the intermingling of bloodlines and cultural exchanges between the two groups. Joseph married Asenath, an Egyptian woman, as recorded in ancient texts. Their children were integrated into the tribes of Israel, according to historical accounts. This integration challenges the notion of a purely homogeneous Israelite lineage. It suggests a more inclusive community with diverse cultural and ethnic origins. Genealogy records from ancient times provide insights into family and tribal origins. Biblical genealogies, though often overlooked, contain valuable historical information. These records detail the relationships and connections between different families and tribes. Scholars analyze these genealogies to understand ancestral lineages and migrations. Some scholars propose that certain names within these genealogies suggest African ancestry. Further research is needed to fully understand the implications of these genealogical findings. The prophet Jeremiah references Ethiopians in his question about changing skin color. Jeremiah's question, "Can the Ethiopian change his skin?" highlights a distinct appearance. This suggests that Ethiopians were recognizable and present in the ancient world. The reference to a leopard spot serves as a parallel to the Ethiopian's unique appearance. The rhetorical question emphasizes the fixed nature of both the Ethiopian's skin and the leopard spots. Ebed-Melech was an Ethiopian eunuch serving in King Zedekiah's court. He demonstrated courage and loyalty by rescuing Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a prophet in danger within the kingdom. Ebed-Melech's actions highlight the roles of Africans in Israel's history. The encounter between Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch highlights the inclusive nature of the gospel. The eunuch was reading the prophet Isaiah, demonstrating his interest in religious texts. This event illustrates the gospel's intention to reach all people, irrespective of their ethnicity. It also underscores the early involvement of Africans in the spread and adoption of Christianity. The story emphasizes the universality of Christian teachings and their accessibility to diverse populations. The baptism of the Ethiopian eunuch is a significant event in early Christian history. It signifies the inclusion of Africans in the early church community. This event challenges the perception of Christianity as a solely white religion. The eunuch's baptism marks him as one of the first African Christians. The script highlights the necessity of aligning new discoveries with established biblical interpretations. It addresses potential conflicts between modern findings and traditional understandings of Scripture. A key focus is on ensuring that interpretations do not distort the core message of the gospel. The script advocates for a balanced approach to understanding Scripture in light of new evidence. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining theological integrity while considering modern perspectives. The goal is to achieve a harmonious integration of contemporary findings and traditional biblical teachings. Tradition suggests Jesus may have traveled to Africa during his lost years. Specifically, the traditions mention Egypt as a place of refuge for Jesus' family. This journey to Egypt is believed to have occurred during Jesus' childhood. The script explores the possibility of African cultural influences on Jesus during this time. It considers how exposure to African traditions might have shaped his perspectives. The script aims to understand the potential impact of this early African experience on Jesus' life. African culture significantly influenced the ancient world. This influence extended to the architecture of Solomon's temple. Egyptian scribes also contributed wisdom during that era. This cultural environment shaped the world in which Jesus lived. Understanding the relationship between Africa, Israel, and early Hebrew believers requires a broad historical perspective. It is crucial to consider the relevant cultural context of the time. A comprehensive approach involves challenging preconceived notions. Openness to new perspectives is essential for accurate historical interpretation. Examining historical connections necessitates a willingness to reconsider established assumptions. It is important not to anachronistically apply modern racial concepts to ancient societies. The notions of black and white as understood today were not present in biblical times. Identity in the ancient world was structured differently than modern racial classifications. Therefore, interpretations of ancient texts should avoid imposing current identity frameworks. In biblical times, identity was primarily defined by tribal affiliation. Family lineage and nationality also played significant roles in identifying individuals. Religious affiliation was another key component of identity during this era. Modern racial categories were not the primary means of identification in ancient times. It is an oversimplification to apply modern racial labels to biblical figures. People of African descent were present in ancient Israel and the early church. These individuals played significant roles in biblical narratives. Biblical interpretation should acknowledge the diversity of its historical context. Understanding the presence and roles of Africans enhances comprehension of biblical texts. The discussion explores the Bible's perspective on Black Israelites and identity. It frames the topic as a matter of faith, justice, and reconciliation. The discussion recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of all people. This approach aims to foster understanding and respect among diverse groups. The script promotes embracing the diversity of God's creation. It encourages celebrating the richness of shared humanity. The goal is to foster a more just world. The script also aims to create a more equitable world. This celebration acknowledges the value of every individual. The Bible is a complex text subject to diverse interpretations. Exploring the Bible requires understanding its historical and cultural contexts. Examining the connections between Africa and the Hebrew people provides deeper insights. Understanding these connections enriches our grasp of biblical history. The Bible's narrative is intertwined with the history and identity of various cultures. Analyzing these intersections enhances comprehension of the biblical text. Bias examination involves critically assessing one's own prejudices and preconceived notions. This process encourages individuals to challenge their underlying assumptions. Challenging biases promotes a more inclusive perspective. Ultimately, this leads to a better informed worldview. Ancient trade routes facilitated exchange between Africa and the Middle East. These routes enabled the movement of goods across regions. They also fostered the exchange of ideas and cultural practices. The routes facilitated the movement of people, contributing to demographic shifts. These interactions highlight the interconnectedness of Africa and the Middle East in ancient times. This scene presents a side-by-side comparison of ancient Egyptian and early Hebrew art. The comparison focuses on identifying similarities in artistic elements. These elements include recurring motifs found in both cultures' artwork. Similarities in artistic styles are also highlighted to reveal shared aesthetics. The analysis extends to the symbolism embedded within each culture's artistic expression. The objective is to emphasize the cultural influence evident in these artistic parallels. Ancient musical performances offer insights into cultural practices. Reenactments showcase instruments and musical styles of the past. Similarities exist between African and Hebrew musical cultures. These shared elements highlight common cultural expressions. Linguistic analysis involves comparing languages to identify similarities and connections. This analysis can focus on cognates, which are words with shared ancestry and similar forms. Shared linguistic features, such as grammatical structures, are also examined. Comparing ancient Hebrew and African languages reveals potential linguistic connections. Identifying cognates and shared features supports the hypothesis of historical linguistic relationships. A genealogical chart visually represents the lineage of biblical figures. The chart highlights potential African ancestry based on scholarly interpretations. Interpretations are derived from names and descriptions within biblical texts. This provides a visual aid for understanding complex ancestral connections. Ancient African kingdoms, such as Kush, maintained geographical proximity to ancient Israel. This proximity facilitated interactions through trade and diplomatic exchanges. Migration patterns also contributed to the cultural and economic connections between these regions. Understanding these interactions provides insights into the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. This reconstruction visually represents Solomon's Temple, a significant historical structure. The depiction emphasizes key architectural elements of the temple. Construction techniques used in the temple's creation are highlighted. The reconstruction explores potential influences from African designs on the temple's architecture. It showcases the integration of these influences into the temple's overall structure. This visual representation aims to provide insights into the temple's design and construction. This scene depicts key biblical narratives featuring individuals of African descent. The stories highlight the roles and contributions of these figures within the biblical context. One prominent example is the Queen of Sheba's visit to King Solomon, showcasing diplomacy and wisdom. Another significant narrative is Philip's encounter with the Ethiopian eunuch, emphasizing inclusion and faith. These visual representations aim to emphasize the diverse cultural presence within biblical history.